This is day 5 of the July 96 7-day retreat in Springwater. What a beautiful morning it is. A golden day. So quiet and peaceful. Just being here is so simple. And yet it may seem so difficult. Just being there meaning the sounds and sensations, the crows, and coolness, and people moving, breathing, happening. In vast space, which has room for everything. Because nothing really takes space. Just comes and goes. Just being here also means no need to pretend. No need to pretend being something or being someone or having something. This is our conditioned being. Trained into us and absorbed from each other. But so superficial, and yet holding the body so tight, so wrinkled. Let's see, the beauty of seeing people in the course of a retreat. The wrinkles of pretense slowly disappear from the faces. Not always, not all the time. One may not be conscious of it. Or is there awareness that every time attention is noticed, there's also a thought behind it. I must, I should, I mustn't. And just attending, listening to it, allowing it to be there, it may smooth out. Because the thoughts that held it are seen. What I should represent to others or to myself. That straitjacket in which human beings live. So tight, so burdened, so unfree. What I should represent to others, how they should see me, how I don't want to see myself. Somebody mentioned this morning, my discomfort at being here. I realize seeing lots of stuff that I don't want to own. And one doesn't have to own it. There's no owner there. It's just seeing what's there, all the motives. feels as meanness or violence or kindness, letting it appear on the screen, display itself, without needing to own it. And to notice the strength of the image, of how one would like to be, and therefore the conflict with what one sees as there in thoughts and movements of the body-mind, reactions to others. It displays more clearly in a retreat, and then I don't want to be like that. But what is one really? At the root bottom of it all, at the source of it all. Always comes back to simple, pure being. Pure awareness being. The song of an airplane. And chatter of birds. One person wrote me a note, is thought the only cause of emotions? It must have come across in what was said previously, emotions being caused by thought. Please, let's be so careful in talking and listening. Never ever can everything be said, because if all the causes of one emotion had to be listed, one would have to list the entire history of this universe. Which is probably without a beginning. Of course, it's not just thoughts causing emotions. What are emotions? What are thoughts? Do we know what we're talking about? Do we observe it? Is it displaying itself on this internal screen? One thought about what I did wrong and the body manifesting guilt, dis-ease, uncomfortableness, pain, remorse. These are all words, but the body is actually manifesting. But what is the thought? That's already chemicals aroused throughout the body. Memory chemicals of what happened. And emotions of regret. I shouldn't have done this. I should have acted differently. It comes particularly to people with children. What could I have done differently? So different children would have resulted. And not thinking it through carefully, but now awash in guilt for wrongdoing. We all know guilt, don't we? This feeling bad about things one did not do in the past or did do wrong. So as this state of affair arises, how to be with it, how to understand it deeply. Sometimes people ask me, is it all right to think during a retreat? Try not to think, and now you talk about thinking things through. Go what needs to be done. Go with what needs to be done, not what one thinks one remembers somebody said. At the time, one did what one did, and one doesn't even remember very clearly, because memory can only be as clear as the mind is at the moment of a happening. It cannot be clearer than that. What makes us act? What makes us react this moment as in the past? Isn't it this whole complex of conditions reacting, which are wired down in one? Angry emotions, which not my angry emotions. One already saw the elders, the mother or father, get angry under certain circumstances, and children learn it by osmosis from each other. We learn it from each other. But then there's also innate anger responses. One doesn't get one's way, and to get one's way, this whole body is all systems go to get it, to think about it, or to get it, to have it, to pursue it. And with this momentum, obviously if it's thwarted or crossed, something happens. We talked about it the other day with regard to fear. All kinds of mobilizations throughout the organism which cannot relieve themselves other than by pursuit of what is wanted. And then sort of an explosion when that is thwarted. Watch it, we can watch it, it's all there to be observed, to be incited. It's nobody's fault, it happens. It's not my fault or their fault. It happens to human beings due to 10 million plus causes. And unless there is insight and some space of awareness which delays or short circuits the automatic reaction from the past, unless that insight is there, there will be more or less automatic reactions to each other, to situations. Repetitive stuff. Sometimes people say, well, I can think differently. I can make myself think differently and maybe react more sanely. Play with it, experiment, see whether it works. Maybe before the saner thought arose, there was already a moment of awareness in space, not just to run with the pressure or to be pushed by the pressure. It takes space not to be automatic. And if that space is not there, we are on autopilot, alone and with each other. And yet this amazing capacity, human beings, to be aware, not through any merit of our own, it is there and happens upon us. Can't express it, don't understand it, can't explain it. Song, which is so moving to me whenever I hear it. I haven't heard it for many years yet. Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound. Or no sound. That saved a wretch like me. Saving meaning not just going with all the set reactions. Fear, anger, greed, ambition. So, if that awareness had flourished, flowered, sprouted at the moment that my kids got the better of me, got me so angry, or whatever one is feeling guilty about, then there may have been a delay. Maybe seeing the anger as just pollution from the past. Or maybe there was reason to say something, and one says it and doesn't feel guilty about it. Realizing how emotions do get excited, mobilized by each other, but not leaving this trace of I did wrong, of remorse and guilt to be there for future reference. So, don't we all come to this insight at one time or another, that if we could have done differently, we would have done differently. We acted the way we did because we acted the way we did. That was the given at the moment. Very likely a moment with no awareness, or very little consciousness of what was going on. So now the remembrance comes up, or the dis-ease, feeling guilty. Will that cloud the mind and body again? Blocking out pure being here, which is the only way in which not to act repetitively, automatically. Only when we're here, without needing to represent or incorporate or own. Here, simple. Is it possible that there will not be repetition of past behavior at this moment? But if the mind is clouded with a smog of guilt, there's no presence. There's only bad feelings and thoughts of what I should have done different. Fear of retribution. Constant churning of thinking, which can, build itself up just by interreaction, thought reacting with thought. I did something wrong, there will be retribution, and the fear of retribution and the fear exciting more and more. So can one stop, look, and listen quietly to this build-up of emotion and wonder about it? Can't sort it all out, but here it is, and listen to it. In the cool breeze, with crows cawing. And all kinds of signs of life. Inside, out, there's really no division between inside and out in pure being here. It's all happening here. But it doesn't happen to someone. That's thinking. Do you realize that? takes thinking it's happening to me to feel this me again. Because me is accumulated memory, upheld and constantly reinforced by our ways of thinking and talking to ourselves and each other. There must be some function in the brain that sort of coordinates all of these past memories into one seemingly coherent whole. And that is felt as being me. String of successive happenings and remembered events, all chained together and extended through the power of imagination into what we call the future. How I will be, how I will continue. All thinking, wanting, fearing. One string of memory. Can one see it that way, at least for instances, for glimpses at a time? And marvel or be awed by its power on this organism. So powerful, the picture of myself, how I need to be treated by others, how I want others to see me. So powerful that one talk or word or reaction from another person that does not accord with how I want to be seen or treated arouses anger and upset. Let us, is it possible? Let's not put it, let us. Is it possible from now on to take every moment of upset at what somebody else does or says as a precious opportunity to learn about ourselves, rather than wallow in the emotions, cling to them, be led by them into further action, further imaging of the other person? I will not talk with him again. I'll never forgive this. All these things that go on in the human mind. No wonder we don't leap and jump like deer. So light, so graceful, so powerful. Because unburdened by all this imagery and memory of what I am and what the others are. So it's really crucial at a moment of getting upset to turn the light inward and watch what's going on. Can we do that? Are we willing or interested in doing that? If not, the drama moves on with guilt and remorse and revenge, tit for tat, and difficulty or absence of relationship, absence of loving relationship, loving, forgiving, gentle relationship. By gentle, I don't mean that one is all sweetness and sugar and talking, like the telephone operators used to be. It's not quite like that anymore. They also have their nervous systems rattled. I mean, looking at violence happening in oneself in a spacious, gentle way, is that possible? By gentle, I mean not instantly axing it, condemning it, rejecting it, cutting it off, refusing to look at it, but giving it space and time and quietness, interest. And which is the only medium, or what is a good word? The only medium or state, it's too limited, but let's use it right now. The only state of gently looking in which change may take place, because the violence, with its need to perpetuate, defend, and so forth, makes place for attention, for awareness, for a wondering what is happening. That's already a change. Do you see that? And to be careful not to immediately say, well, I'm not violent, I'm not angry, I'm not afraid. It comes out so quickly when one is confronted. That's why confronting is not usually the most helpful way of mirroring each other, telling each other what we are. It's too threatening. Although sometimes people tell me it helps me anyways, because then afterwards, by myself, I can look. Eventually we'll need to look right away. It may seem very difficult, but not impossible. By not denying what's going on, for one, and not wallowing in it or making a big story out of it. That's one way in which we manage to look at ourselves, weave it into more story about how I am, even sharing it with others, but now it's not the immediacy of oneself, but the story about oneself that one can deal with. It's so much easier. It seems so much easier, but it doesn't get at the root. For moment to moment, reacting and wondering about that as it happens, or soon after. In this connection, it's also very helpful to look at this seemingly innate tendency in us to blame. It goes deeper than that. It is the conviction that we're all free agents of our actions and our reactions. That's how we see each other. That's how we react to each other. That's why we react to each other, because we think you could have done different. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be like that. How can we question this whole thing? We don't know the answer why people act, and usually the response that is given very quickly when I bring it up is, well, shouldn't we take responsibility? Don't we have responsibility? Shouldn't we expect responsibility from others? And we have to be very careful to sort out our thinking, what we mean when we talk in that way. Responsibility means responding, the ability to respond. And on what basis do we respond? Coming back to what we started with. Is the basis conditioned, reactive, remembered stuff? Or some spacious freedom to be with this whole moment, this whole situation. And the response coming on its own. One doesn't have to drum it up. It arises in an amazing way. So that one is at a loss to say, I did that, because thought will very quickly jump in and try to add it to the story, to the collected works. But that's only thought spinning. In truth, at a moment of openness, appropriate responses happen. On their own. And need not be owned or defended, identified with. So to watch when thought comes in, to do that again, to own it, to identify with it. How wonderful I acted. And it becomes sticky and tricky again, because when thought says how wonderful I acted, and somebody else does not give me credit for it, I feel hurt, not appreciated, misunderstood. But if this thought activity is distrusted, seen through, then someone else could say, why did you do that? And one can look at it. Where did this all come from? What was needed? What was seen to be needed? One never sees all the facts of the moment. Can only do one's best. We are all limited. So if the identification with doing this or that, saying this or that, when the identification loosens, lightens through insight, how much easier we can get along with each other. It does not have to be this one ball of mutual defensiveness, which is so wearing on our nervous systems. Does that make sense, or is it too complicated? We can look at it again in meetings, if you want to, if you're interested. But to watch whether the moment I react about what somebody did, get angry or upset or hurt, I may just remember what the person did or hear about it, or it happens right now. Let a blinker light go up. Watch out. Do I think this person is doing this to me? Because of their disregard, callousness, sloppiness. Let's find out why we do things and not immediately project or interpret and be so paranoid that things are done to get me or to hurt me, thwart me. Because we are on such power trips over each other. Usually one recognizes those power trips much more clearly in other people than in oneself. Comes up so much, this person is controlling, and then the person who is said to be controlling says the other person is controlling. What does it mean to be controlling? To want one's way. Do we see that? That when there's not space and openness and easiness with stuff not all identified, then what's the need of control? One realizes that things have a marvelous way of taking care of themselves. And oneself is just in this whole network of activity which needs to be done, because the eyes are open and the ears listen. So unless there is this openness to see how beautiful things get done on their own, happen to oneself, and there is this idea I have to control others or else they get the better of me. I have to control myself, of course, this idea, which all stems from memory, conditioning, and needs to be questioned, examined spaciously. If taking a risk, if you want to put it this way. The risk of things falling apart. But what really falls apart is all this tightness about oneself. What I am, how things should be, and how other people ought to be. When it falls apart, there may be a moment of simple being again. In which crickets and birds, heartbeat, and physical sensations are the whole thing. Right here. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Comes to mind one person asking, in saying, I've got to bring my mind back to this present moment, or to present wholeness. I find when it does come back, it always comes back to a part, to a fragment, not the whole. Meaning maybe the cricket, or the breathing, or a pain in the back. And feeling, these are all fragments which come into awareness. But the whole is awareness. Unbroken. And whether it's an airplane or pain in the back, it doesn't matter what comes and goes in awareness. It may be this or that. But what matters profoundly is awareness. That is whole. Not fragmented through what I want for myself, or what I'm afraid of, or what is bad or good. These are all mind movements that fragment this wholeness of awareness. But they can come into awareness. Judgment to be seen completely without condemning it. This moment of no one doing it, no one having to do it, is all miraculously happening on its own. We will end here for today.